Welcome back to Pursuing the Muse. I'm your host, Tom Compton, and we are kicking off Season 4 strong with a special guest, welcoming Grammy Award-winning musician, songwriter, and producer, Buick Audra. She's a Nashville resident. Her fourth solo record, Adult Child, is a strikingly personal concept album released in June of 2025. She is also the guitarist and primary songwriter in the melodically heavy duo Friendship Commanders, who just released their album Bear this fall. Buick dives deep into the strikingly personal Adult Child album, telling us the profound meaning behind the refrain, "Can I slow it down?" You'll hear reflections on working with the legendary Steve Albini, and she shares how performing her a cappella song, Losing My Courage, completely silences even the loudest rock venue. So without further ado, here's Buick.
But some of us are from the chasm echo. Some of us have had to learn to let go. For some of us, staying alive means more than tending the flames of our elders. He doesn't know where. Those are hysterical ones who get the rules and said I just down. Always the one who's making sure it's down. Ever always obsessed with an rhythm. I tried to be nice, but we're losing. We should all be nice, it's improving. They were always nice. And the worst people win, it's your favorite day. And the worst people win, it's a fact.
All right, Tom Compton here with Pursuing the Muse. I'm very excited to start Season 4 with Buick Audra. Buick, how are you this evening?
I'm very well. I'm grateful to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes, you are a Nashville resident, correct?
I am.
Living the dream, right?
Living the dream, living through allergy seasons, you know. But yeah, I'm not from here, but I've lived here for about 15 years, and I'm happy to be here for sure.
Excellent. So you've got not just one, but two albums out here in 2025.
Yes.
And we'll get to Friendship Commanders, but I do want to talk about an album that came out in June, your solo record, Adult Child, which
Yes.
is just a wonderful piece of art that you put into the world. I'll say that listening to the record, it draws you in right away. It's got the hooks, it's got the musicianship, you got the vocals, and it almost feels like, you know, it's a pop record, but there's, in doing a double take, there's something a lot more going on with the lyrics that elevates it to another level because it's so honest and so vulnerable and at the same time resilient. And I think there's a positivity to it. What can you tell me about the theme you were going for with the record?
Well, first of all, thank you for all of those kind words and observations. I'm really appreciative of you listening and pulling all that out. So Adult Child is a record that came out on June 13th that I wrote and produced, and it is a strikingly personal body of work, I will say, even in my own catalog, which tends to lean toward the personal. It is a body of work about my own sort of self-portraits of myself, and looking at the markings that I carry, the strengths that I carry, but also some of the difficulties that I still have with myself and out here in the world with other people. And it was a labor of split focus. You know, I made it over several different sessions, and because of that, I've called it kind of a sonic collage, because I think that it's not a body of work that was made like, all right, we're going into the studio and we're all going to track together and it's all going to be rendered with all the same sounds and have this cohesive through line. Instead, the cohesive through line is more thematic, and the sonic stuff is a little bit more varied than some albums may be, certainly than some of my albums have been. And I was just like really, really taken in to make that project, and proud of how it came out. Thank you for checking it out.
Did I read that this was a 3-year process?
No, it was about was about a year and a half, top to bottom, maybe a little bit more, almost 2 years. You know, the first session, I should say, was in spring of 23. The second session was in spring of 24. And then I did some recording myself without the band after that for like an a cappella song called Losing My Courage, and another more stripped down piece called Yellow, and then the spoken word piece, A List. Those were all recorded by me. And then it took a little bit to get them mixed. The project was mixed by my friend and longtime collaborator, Kurt Ballou of Converge, who is more known for his work in metal and heavy music. But he took this project on and I think brought something really interesting out in the sounds that we recorded going down. And I think by the end of it, it was like a year and 9 months. Yeah.
Okay. And then right out of the gate, The Worst People Win is it's so catchy, and I would say timely. It made me think of certain people in the government.
Yes. Some people in this life are seem to be moving through whatever their walk is without much accountability, and it's something I've observed all my life, both in personal spaces, but then also obviously in larger, more cultural spaces. And the song has like kind of a humor to it, but it's also kind of heavy because in the verses I'm talking about things that I've lived through and have tried to share with people. And the response has sometimes been like, well, that person was nice to me, and so what happened to you doesn't matter, essentially, you know? And I think there is a tendency toward individualizing experiences with people instead of looking out at larger damage. And I think we are living through that time right now.
Right. Yeah. At many levels, it resonates.
Thank you.
So, and then it stays up tempo with questions for the gods of human behavior.
Yes.
When you get to repeating "slow down," what does slow down mean for you?
I'm saying, can I slow it down? So that song is about the things that I believe that I have taken on from family lineage and sort of nurture and nature patterns that I have inherited and perhaps adopted unknowingly. And I'm asking if it's possible for me to slow down the progress of those things in my own system in my lifetime. So it was a really heavy song to record. I actually wept when I first tried to sing that song when I was doing vocals. And it was surprising to me because I had produced the band the session on it and played it many times live and felt like I really knew my way around the song. It wasn't like a fresh piece of writing by the time I was singing it, but those particular questions they're sort of stark, sort of like, am I able to not be what I'm from in my lifetime? And the answer is, I think so. I think I am slowing it down, but that was a very honest piece of writing. There's a lot of honest writing on this record.
Yes, yeah, definitely. And I mean, that song in particular, it's almost like it's an honor to like be there, as an audience listening to your honesty going on, and it's a very special song. So
thank you so much. Yeah, I have felt it's hard to grade your own work, but for me, it's one of my favorite songs I've ever written, ever. It really holds a special spot for me, and I feel like it said something that I'd been maybe working towards saying for a long time and never really nailed. There's a lot of in songwriting. There's a lot of like what I call process work, where you're writing around an issue or adjacent to an issue, and when I wrote Questions for the Gods, I was like, oh no, that's it. I hit that. I hit exactly that thing that I was working toward,
Yeah, and that's like a testament to the artistry, because sure, there's some kind of like personal thing going on that works for you, but the listener, it works for the listener too, and that's really hard to pull off.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah. Really appreciate it.
And then you mentioned playing the songs live. I saw that you were touring solo electric, which how is that? I mean, I've seen solo acoustic. I've not very often seen solo electric.
I've played really as an artist toward, when I'm not with a band, I tend to just play electric guitar. That's like my sweet spot. That's what's natural to my body. And I think it's cool. I mean, I'm still loud. It's not, there's a lot of intimacy in the live show, but it's still got like a lot of presence. Certainly is not coffee shop intimacy. It's got like a different type of boldness to it. But yeah, that's just, these songs were written, with the exception of Firstborn, they were all written, if not on electric guitar, they were rendered on electric guitar. Yellow I actually didn't write with any instrument. I wrote that song in my head and then wrote a guitar part to it when I was recording it. But the rest of the record was written on electric guitar, and so that's how I play the songs.
Yeah, that's very cool. I will say with Yellow, that was the first track on the album that I was kind of uncomfortable with, because it was hard to hear, I hate myself. It was like, wow. And I wasn't sure how that was supposed to land, but upon repeated listenings, it paints a bigger picture. And it's interesting that, a lot of that song is kind of going on in your head, and like you're saying, even melodically.
Yeah.
It just, you kind of knew it before recording it.
Yeah, I just knew how it went. It was interesting. I have not written a ton of music that way, but I am always open to different methods of rendering music and hearing music. And that song just sort of wrote itself. And, that song is heavy and is very bearing, but I think is also like something that a lot of people, since the record came out, and since that song was a single, when the single came out, a lot of people told me how much they related to it. And I was like, I do think many of us walk around with these tendencies, I guess, to sort of downplay ourselves or badmouth ourselves. And when you interject a certain amount of humor into the moment, it doesn't come off as heavy. But I think in the dark night of the soul, what happens for me is that I'm like, why am I saying this stuff about myself at this point in my life? Yeah. Why am I still socially like offering this up as like just giving voice to it in the room? And that song was actually written about the second full band session for the record. And I had said something sort of flippant about like, I can't do this, blah, 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 because I hate myself. I said it in front of my band members and collaborators, and they've all played with me for years, and they sort of know I'm self-deprecating, and I have sort of a funny, light touch with things. But when I got home, I thought, this is one of the things I'm talking about in Questions for the Gods, where I'm like, what am I still doing out here? Like, can I undo this if I name it and I shine a big bright light on it? And the answer is yes. I've never done it again.
Oh man, that's amazing.
And it's cool to hear other people relate to it. There's something so fortifying about making something about a loneliness that you carry and having other people say, oh my God, I do this exact same thing. And you're like, oh, good. I mean, not good for us, but it's good to feel known and to build community around shared, tendencies or leanings.
Right. I think it's helpful when people realize that they're not alone in some burdens that they're carrying, experiencing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very cool.
Thank you.
And then the next track, to me, feels like the most positive song on the album. And I may be overstepping my bounds.
No, I think you're right.
Because it's like I used to take pics of everybody else, but now I'm going to take some of myself. Some clarity might be nice. And it's such a refreshing contrast to go from, where the album has been into this positivity.
Yeah, there is a lightness to One Step Close Up. It's, obviously the track is very upbeat and it was produced in kind of a breezy way. There are, the pre-choruses are very heavy, where I'm saying we can disappear slowly and no one will name it, and we can all become lonely, surrounded by faces. And there's some heaviness in that, but it is a song about celebrating one's own creative tendencies and expressions, which I didn't always feel comfortable doing. I'm from kind of a weird family, and that was not always encouraged. And so this song has, I guess, a sense of resilience and empowerment to it. But it's just a very upbeat. And I'm not known for my upbeat work, Tom. I don't know if you could put that together, but but this song came naturally, and it is named after my Polaroid camera, which was used for the album cover photo. That's just a Polaroid. That's just a test shot when I got it back from being repaired. That is the de facto photo where I say, got my Polaroid camera fixed. It's a one-step close-up. I literally got my camera fixed and went outside to take a test shot in natural light, and the album cover is that test shot.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I wrote the song about that.
Yeah, that's like I would have guessed a professional, kind of photo shoot kind of thing. But
Thank you. No, that's just a Polaroid in January in my front yard.
Awesome.
And it was so striking not because of me in it even. And you can see I left the dust flecks and everything from the lens in it. I didn't edit it at all. But what was striking to me is that the sky behind me is like these blues and almost magentas. It looks like it's been edited in some way, but that's just an actual, I think because it was cold outside, Polaroid film is responsive to temperature and other natural elements. So I think because it was January, the film just like hit the air that way, and it made this sort of cyan leaning image. And I thought, wow, what a cool, weird photo.
Yeah, the colors are fantastic. I love it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that is completely unedited. I just scanned it in, and that's the original photo.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sometimes it works out that way, right?
Yeah, I was like, why don't I not mess with this and try and be too self-serious and get some fancy photo? Let's just use this actual Polaroid,
Yes, good choice. So, and when the next track on the album, Birthdays and Bullshit, I love it. It's hysterical and profound at the same time.
Thank you.
When I heard this song, it was right before a good friend of mine's birthday. And I sent it to him as like, here, this is how birthdays can be,
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I know. I was just like, I liked the bridge so much that I was like, this has to be the name of the song. In the bridge, I say, think I've had enough of the birthdays and bullshit. And I was like, that feels like the essence of the message, honestly. Yeah, Birthdays and Bullshit is the heaviest song tonally on the track, I think. It's got the heaviest guitars and drums, and I'm singing pretty hard on that track too. And it's funny, somebody reviewed the record and they said it's the epitome of female rage, and it's actually just grief. That song it's just because I'm being loud. I think it sounds like people interpret that as anger, but maybe anger and grief are sisters or cousins, but it's about losing a friendship to their disinterest in what I do, and me sort of feeling like I could never fit their expectation of me, both as a friend but also just as a woman. I think there are these gendered expectations of what we're supposed to perform as women, and I'm not nailing that at all. And one of those things is like remembering everybody's birthdays and keeping all the dates together and all the children's dates and all, just whatever. And so in that song, I'm sort of laying it down and being like, if we don't actually know each other because of each other, what's going on? Like,
right.
Why am I even bothering with this charade,
Right. The formalities, there's got to be a meaning to them at some point.
I think so. There has to be some other filler in there, some other threads that are maintained.
Yeah. And then going into Losing My Courage, it's really striking to go, from what the album has been into this a cappella number it just stands on its own 2 feet really beautifully at that point in the album.
Thank you.
Who else is singing with you on that?
That's just me.
Is it? Oh my gosh.
That's just me. That's just like 14 of me, or maybe 15. So Losing My Courage, again, like Yellow, I just sort of started hearing it, and I did sit down and plunk away on a guitar just for form, I think, when I was writing it. But almost immediately I thought, this has to be a cappella. There was just something about it that demanded like less, but that is somehow also more. There's the statements within it, I think, are very bold. And I just loved the idea of singing it on its own. And, I was alone in the studio, and it's wild. You can't really hear it. I think Kurt Ballou did a great job of denoising some of the tracks, but it was in the middle of the cicada situation last year. And so the cicadas outside were clocking in at I'm not kidding, 90 dB on some days, which is loud as hell, and on the actual recordings, you can hear the artifacts of the cicadas because there are so many recordings and there's no instrumentation other than vocals. So you're hearing this, but Kurt did a pretty good job of denoising it. But I always think about being in here in the studio in the dark and layering all those vocals and just hearing the din of the creatures outside. But yeah, it was beautiful to record that. Losing My Courage and Yellow were recorded in the same 48-hour period.
Wow.
Together. Yeah.
How were you doing emotionally after that 48 hours? And you do.
Tom, I had the best time. It's weird. I love to record, and I love to record vocals. And I do it all myself. I always track vocals alone in both of my projects. So there was just this, I just had a beautiful time with it. I will say that I started Yellow a week before, and my friend and collaborator Steve Albini died in the middle of me tracking that song. And the grief was too much. I just stopped working on the record for about a week and came back and started back in on Yellow. So I think there is some grief that is not even about the story of the song, but just about the power of that time and the acceptance of that time built into that recording. But I think that singing by myself for 2 straight days was just what I needed,
Right. Excellent.
And I will say that live, I do Losing My Courage completely alone.
Nice.
No guitar. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah,
it shuts every room down.
Everyone has to figure out how to respond, or
there's no sound at all. And I never open my eyes. And so you can be in the loudest rock venue. And when I do Losing My Courage, it just goes completely silent.
Wow. It's almost otherworldly.
Cool. Yeah. I don't think anybody sees it coming.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, I would be remiss. I think I went from birthdays and bullshit to Losing My Courage to not talk about It All Belonged to Me, which has my favorite piece of poetry in the line, everybody wants to say this, be good to the ones you love, speak kindly, but some of us are from the chasm of echo. I love that line. That is my favorite line on the album.
Thank you so much. It's one of mine as well. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that.
It's the chasm of echo. That just it's perfect. It's perfect. Yes, I see everybody's expectations, but maybe I'm not where they think I am.
Yeah.
To meet them. So it's just wonderful.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so some of this record, primarily this song, but it shows up in other places. Some of this record is about being the estranged one in a family, and that is the role that I play. And, for a long time, I would kind of not, if I said anything about it, I would get these kind of boilerplate maxims, the ones,
From like go on a bumper sticker.
The ones, about family and telling the people that you love them, it just doesn't fit everybody. It just doesn't fit everybody's life. And, I was saying to somebody else recently, on my recent Friendship Commanders date, someone was talking about this song, and I said, the often what I've observed in my lifetime is that if a grown child, an adult child, which is what the album's called, says that they're estranged from their elders, the burden of that estrangement often falls to that adult child, not to those elders, not to those parental figures. Mm. But some of us are actually not spoken to by our parental figures, and I happen to be one of those people. So, laying it at my feet, laying a bunch of maxims at my feet, not only does it not feel good and is it not appropriate or solicited, it's also incorrect. Mm. You know what I mean? I am only able to control what I can on my side of the street. If you're rejected by a parental figure, that's not on you.
Right, and the ball's in their court right now.
Sure is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a song about I don't go home to my hometown of Miami, which I love and miss. I haven't been home in a decade. And the video for that song is all like retro Miami footage being projected onto me. And talking about how much I love and miss the place and can still see it in my dreams. But I don't go back because I'm estranged, and that I don't need to be told that I should be different in that estrangement. It's already hard enough, you know?
Right. And in speaking of the video, that's a whole nother form of art. I mean, you're talking about the Polaroids and
Yes.
The visuals. Do you feel that's another facet of yourself? Is there any difficulty in pulling it all together as one piece?
No, visual art is definitely like one of the dialects within the arts that I speak. I have a visual art degree from Massachusetts College of Art. So I think that my music often lyrically, but also tonally, references visual things, visual realities. And so rendering videos and rendering the two-dimensional art for the stuff is very natural to me. It feels like part of the same story, you know, to pull that together.
Right. That's cool. I mean, I'm so not visual that I almost have to apologize interacting with the people sometimes, because I'm like this strictly auditory person. And so it's interesting to hear an artist that is able to balance so many different mediums.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think all of our brains are perfect in the way that we, you know, receive and process things. But mine has definitely always had like a visual component. And even if I'm not rendering visuals, a lot of my lyrics definitely lean descriptively. And, you know, there's often like color involved in names or things that I'm describing. It's just how I think music for me is very visual. I think I see things anyway, even if they're not ever brought into, you know, into being rendered.
Did you direct the video for It All Belonged to Me?
I co-directed it with Jerry Rowe. I did direct the video for Questions for the Gods of Human Behavior, in which I paint my face with the same imagery that I'm painting on glass in the verses. Let's see, what else did I release? I'm trying to think. I directed the video for Yellow. So yeah, I did direct. I did direct all of them. Firstborn was the last one that we made in the last single release, and Jerry and I co-directed it. But yeah, the first two I directed by myself, and then the second two I co-directed. Yeah.
Okay. And then, so Firstborn, is that where kind of the adult child theme all like comes into a concentrated point?
Yeah, I mean, I think each of the songs holds a facet of what I'm identifying with as an adult child, but Firstborn is definitely like a very fleshed out set of, I'm sort of saying like, I recall a time when I used to be this way and they liked me better, and now I'm not that way and I'm way over here. So yeah, there's definitely like I'm explaining that my role has shifted in my own family in my lifetime. I used to be like a hero child, and now I'm the black sheep. Which I think is an extraordinary achievement if you can go from that one to the other.
Done it all.
You've done some heavy lifting if you're able to pull that off. Some heavy expressing in my end. But yeah, Firstborn I'm immensely proud of. I just think it's such a, for lack of a better word, I think it's such a pretty track. It just has this beautiful warmth to it. And I produced it as an acoustic thing all the way down, and I just love how it came out. Every time it comes on, I'm like, this is such a surprising, beautiful thing on this record, you know?
Yeah, love it. And then
Thank you.
You close with a list, and honestly, I'm not sure what, as a listener, what to make of, you know, it's almost like, here's my list of names who, you know, maybe you still got a grudge against. It's like, wow, this is an interesting statement to close with. What were you going for with a list?
Well, a list is just, it's funny because I think that the worst people win and a list are sisters. I think that they're like, having the record wrap back around after a list to the worst people win makes a lot of sense to me thematically. But yeah, a list is just sort of a continuation of things that we've talked about where, there are these maxims and these sort of forgive and forget type of things and that are said to people that are from non-traditional situations or who have estrangements in their lives. And in that piece, I'm saying, I actually don't hold on to every single thing, and carry it around actively and worry about it all the time. But I am marking the spots where I was hurt. And I'm reminding myself that I don't have to go back there and that I'm allowed to choose differently for myself, which I think is honestly the thesis statement of the entire record, is that I'm allowed to change my mind and be different than what I'm from and also than what I previously was. And not everybody in your life is going to like that. And I have learned that firsthand, like that friend that I lost in Birthdays and Bullshit, she liked me when I was more compliant and more attentive to everybody else's needs, but I like me better now. And it doesn't mean that I'm uncaring or unfeeling. It just means that I'm also holding on to myself, not just everybody else.
Nice. Yeah, that's very cool because that's where you land being okay, being not everybody's expectations of you.
No, but some people are, and I count myself among them, some people are raised really to serve and please and be accommodating, and that's fine. I'm not saying that that's a negative for everybody, but I am saying that for me, it was not the only role that I needed to have in this life. I have these other things. I have this music. I have this lens that I see through, and I don't want to miss my life and not use it.
Yeah. And I also have read that you do a fair amount of production work. How did you get involved with producing?
I think just because I started out producing my own projects or co-producing and people liked certain sensibilities that I have. I think production is really about a sensibility thing. It's about the way that you hear music in a space and the way that you can imagine different instrumentations and voices interacting. And I am imaginative, and I think some people lean that way. Other people might like more traditional approaches. I definitely, as shown on this record, can kind of spread out and try different things. But I love production. I think it's a big part of bringing, as much as I love songwriting, and I do consider myself a songwriter first in every regard, I think that production can make a great song even better and can bring it to an audience in a different way. If you hear me play The Worst People Win solo, it's still a powerful and beautiful song. It's a songwriter song when I play it solo, right? Because I'm playing my guitar part, I'm performing my vocal, and it has a power and a boldness to it. It's very different than what you're hearing on the record. The record almost has a cheekiness to it. And that's the gift of production, is being able to lend these sort of other shades to something that might be less dimensional without the thoughtfulness of I want this guitar to play these single note hits coming all the way in and then disappear in the verse. That all makes you feel something as a listener,
Yeah, that's very cool. You have sort of more colors to work with the full band, so that's cool.
Yeah, or even with yourself, Yellow is just me and a drummer. I did everything on that track, but it gives you a landscape, right? It makes you sort of feel, there's a starkness to Yellow that I was super, super proud of, because I'd never really heard a track exactly like that, honestly.
Yeah.
Just drums and then this really minimalist guitar and then vocals,
Are you at all thinking about the space that, the minimal instrumentation gives you to work with? Are you thinking in between notes as much as the notes themselves?
Oh, yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, I think that the absence of sounds is a statement. It is sort of telling you what to pay attention to and what to focus on.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think even going back to I'm a child of the 80s, and being in Chicago, a fair amount of blues music. Like I remember great blues players saying stuff like, "It's the notes you don't play
Yeah,
that
sure is.
that make all the difference."
Yeah, like you'll notice there's no guitar soloing on my stuff. Like I don't really go for that. Like any lead guitars are very hemmed in and written, not a lot of like sort of now let's all just like wild out and do that's I don't I like things to have a sort of measured. I like to measure what I'm putting on a track because it's forever. But yeah, so that's about that, what you don't play. It's like not having every single type of guitar possible. And even like removing all the instrumentation for Losing My Courage, like that felt really decisive,
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think solos would serve these songs, they're so wonderful the way they are. And I don't see, I had never even like thought like, oh, there's no guitar solos on here because I never, felt anything was missing, I guess,
That's so cool to hear. Yeah. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, I do like some lead guitar, but I like to know what it's doing. Sure. And it's funny because I've been driving around on tour a lot and we've been listening to like, Rush and King Crimson in the car, and that stuff is written within an inch of its life. There's no one just taking like an impromptu, like ripping blues solo in the middle of like, frame by frame. Like that stuff is, it's very decisive, isn't it?
Right. Yeah. There are a lot of notes and they all have a function there.
Yeah, exactly. 1 million, every guitar note imaginable, but they all land exactly where they're supposed to.
Right. Yeah. Some right after one after another. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want, in talking about your producing, that is like, you're a Grammy winning producer.
You found out.
Yeah. So that's very cool. I mean, is that something that like opened a floodgate of producing opportunities to you because that was 2010-ish when that happened?
No, and I'll tell you why, because I didn't tell anybody I'd won any Grammys. I had such a strange relationship with the whole thing when it first happened that I was very kind of like, oh yeah, I just sort of let it pass. I just hung my Grammys on my wall this year in my office. It's 2025. I got them framed and hung this year. I'll forward you an Instagram post earlier this year where I was like, guys, look, I just hung my Grammys. And that was like a big deal for me to even say I have Grammys in public. No. So this is part of the adult child thing. And what I'm talking about on this record is this sort of playing small and feeling awkward about any sort of ownership of self or creative expression. And some of it does come from family of origin and some of it's just my own weird stuff. But it's been some work to get to a place where I'm like, yes, I'm a Grammy Award-winning producer. And I am. And honestly, now I'm pretty vocal about it. If people ask like you are, I'm pretty straightforward about it. But yeah, it took me a long time. I didn't tell anybody.
Yeah, I think, it's weird. The Grammys are a weird world because some people like dismiss the Grammys and like there's like the cliche of like the first heavy metal Grammy went to Jethro Tull. And
I know. How odd is that? That's an interesting, that doesn't get talked about enough.
So everyone's like, are the Grammys even like legitimate, because they're making decisions like that. But at the same time, to get that sort of recognition is
it's astonishing. Yeah, it's astonishing. And I'll be honest with you, adult child was submitted in a few categories this year for the first round of voting. I have no idea, what will happen. But, in the first wave, adult child was submitted, and as was The Worst People Win in 2 different categories.
Nice.
But by a Recording Academy member. I didn't have anything to do with it.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I have no idea how that works. Is it like a member has to nominate you?
Yeah, or your record label has to submit you. And of course, this is self-released. So in that case, my record label would be me. And I presume people are submitting themselves, but I don't quote me on that. I don't really know. I'm not a voting member. I could be, like, I'm eligible to become a voting member, I think, because I am a winner. Like, but then there's like a whole rigmarole you have to go through for that, which I've clearly not done, Tom, based on everything we've talked about. But yeah, somebody who loved the record and thinks it's the best rock record of the year submitted it, and the worst people win. So there were 3 submissions total for this project. And I did share about it, and I did like do the responsible artist thing, and I made a for your consideration page on my website against all of my internal streaming and melting down. But
Yeah, early.
yeah, I'm improving is what I'm saying. Right.
It's almost ironic that the worst people win.
I know.
It's the
Isn't it
song.
incredible?
Where-
Wasn't even a
Well,
single.
so you really shouldn't expect to win because you're such a great person. So you've almost like it's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy.
I know. If I win, I've said something about myself. But no, to answer your question in a very roundabout way, no, it did not open a bunch of doors. But the people that have been drawn to me on a production level, it's almost a higher compliment because they're just drawn to work that they've heard of mine, which is, I think, cooler, honestly, that they're not, it's not necessarily like a clout adjacent thing as much as it is just like sort of enjoying my creative sensibilities. And I think I'd rather be considered for that,
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
It's not just coming from a position of authority. It's
No.
yeah.
No, they just like the work of whatever it is that they've heard of that I've done. But, and I'm a songwriter here in town. I've written music with a bunch of people for their stuff. I don't tend to co-write for any of my own work in my projects, but I'm happy to co-write with other people for theirs. And that's been a cool and interesting way to use, what I have. And I really enjoy collaborating with people. And that's a completely different process. So instead of listening to myself as a songwriter, I'm listening to them and then bringing what I can to it. It's like a very different muscle, writing for other people.
Is it usually they have ideas and they're stuck and they're bringing you in?
Not always. Sometimes we start from scratch, but like I wrote some stuff with Mia Morris, who's a great young multi-instrumentalist performer. She's a cool woman. She's probably now like, how old would Mia be now? She might be 19 or 20, but I started writing with her when she was like 16. And like at the time that we were starting to write together, she was in high school and I was not. And so like the stuff that she was living with and thinking about and sort of processing definitely lived in like a certain space, right? Like she was having these experiences, these social experiences or cultural experiences or whatever that really belonged to her in that time and space. And so more than music ideas, what I was listening to was her life. We would get together and spend some time and she would tell me what she'd been thinking about or feeling or experiencing. And then we would write from there. And I feel like that's such a great thing for me to bust out of my own. I'm an artist always, I have 2 projects, I'm doing stuff all the time, but it's really an interesting thing to be invited into somebody else's experience and write around what they're thinking and feeling. I love that.
Is that almost like being an actress, like taking on a role in trying to get inside someone's head with where they're at?
I don't know. Maybe. I think I'd probably be a trash actress for sure. But I think it's just being a good listener. I think that empathy and curiosity are helpful assets in co-creating. I think that being curious about somebody else and listening to them and meeting them where they are, instead of needing to dominate and make everything about the way that you see and hear things, is a gift,
Are you maybe gently pushing in a direction that they might not see?
Only melodically. The only time I ever introduce something and try and never perspective-wise. Their perspective is theirs and valid, and it's a forever song for them. They're the ones that are going to perform it. So it's like I want them to love the statements that they're making within their work. Where I come in and where I think I'm best suited is like if we're hanging out in a verse and that person doesn't know where it should go, I do. I know where it should go melodically. Like I know what the chord change should be for us to like elevate it and bring it to like a big thing, a big hook. I can do that. I'm helpful there.
Nice. Is that just from the experience you have had, or do you think there's some innate sense of art or music that is within you?
I mean, I of course have been a student of songcraft and songwriting my whole life, so I'm not going to say that I'm just some unicorn. I've been studying the way that music works my whole life. But yes, I do think that there is like a built-in sense of melody and structure that we as songwriters have, and just like it's like one of my favorite things about myself. On my hardest day with myself, I'm always grateful for my songwriting. Like always.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's a gift.
Yeah, I feel very, very fortunate to be able to not just express through songwriting, but to world build. And when you're writing with other people, you are contributing to building their sonic world. And that's, it's an honor, and it's also just like an interesting challenge, to change the way that you are approaching songwriting and join somebody else's team is cool.
Do you ever get stuck with one of your own songs that you don't know where to go with it?
Hell yes. So in my other project, Friendship Commanders released a record just like 2 weeks ago called Bear. And I'm the songwriter in that project as well. And there's a song on the record called Melt that I first heard the riff, the entire chorus melody, and the verse guitar part and melody for, and then could not understand what it was about. I knew it was called Melt. I could not understand like what it needed to be about lyrically. And so there are all of these voice memos on my phone where it's just me like playing the riff and humming the melodies and knowing how it went structurally and melodically. And I did not write the lyrics for another year and a half.
Wow.
And I just hung on to it. I knew when songs are that melodically bold and I can hear them over the course of weeks, I know that they've stuck to me, like that they belong to me and they're not just like sort of passing melodic phrases. But I had not yet lived the two stories that song would embody. So the melody came first, the structure came first, and then I had to actually live the experiences, and then I wrote it.
Wow, that's interesting, because it's almost like the music was ahead of you.
Exactly. And I was like, no, this is true. Like, I know that this song goes this way. I knew it was called this. All of these things I knew were true. And I labeled them all like really meticulously. Like my notes, I'll say like Melt Bridge, and it's just like melody and guitar. Like there's no, and then I lived the two stories that would become that song. And I knew, I was like, oh, okay, this is about this set of experiences with my own gender. And then once I knew that, the song wrote itself within like 20 minutes. Like it just was like complete. But yeah, I do have experiences like that. And I think that the key there is to just know that it's coming and to be patient and trust the process and never just throw some words into a song like that are not true or that you're trying to force. Nothing that is a keeper comes from that for me personally. I think that gets into like, I don't know, trying to fill in the blanks too quickly.
It's like inauthentic or something. It's not.
It really is.
Yeah.
If I'm just trying to make something happen, it's not going to be something that I want to play for a long period of time or over a long period of time.
Are you generally a music first songwriter?
Typically they come right together. The two things. Like when I sat down and I wrote Questions for the Gods of Human Behavior, I just sat down and wrote it. Like completely. Same with The Worst People Win. That tends to be my process. But every once in a while I will encounter a song that's like, I got all the melodic pieces or most of them, and then I'm waiting on whatever happens after that. And then on the other end of the spectrum, sometimes I'll write down certain phrases and be like, I know this goes somewhere. And I haven't yet heard the music.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Friendship Commanders.
Sure.
That's your duo with Jerry Rowe.
Mm-hmm.
And how did you guys hook up and become like an ongoing entity?
Friendship Commanders was honestly a side project. It was something that we just started because I had written some songs that I was like, I'd like to record these in a heavier way than I was doing. I was doing my solo stuff. I should say I put my solo stuff down for a while, but this was before I did so. And I was like recording in England and doing all these things with my other project. And then I had some rock songs that I wanted to record, and Jerry and I demoed them, and we were like, this is really cool. But he lived in LA and I lived here in Nashville. And for a long time, it was just like kind of this idea and something we would mess around with here and there. And then about 10 years ago, it started to take shape as a much more serious and central thing. And I had put my solo stuff down. I had kind of a fraught relationship with it, post Grammys and all that jazz. And I was like, forget all that. I don't want to do that anymore. I sort of couldn't emotionally handle to do it anymore. And Friendship Commanders became very central for me and for Jerry. He moved back here to Nashville, which is actually where he's from. And we started touring regionally and then nationally and releasing records. And before we knew it, we were, in our favorite band, which is what you hope to be. You hope to make the work that is the music you want to hear, And we signed a 3-album record deal earlier this year, like literally 13 days after Adult Child came out. It's been a big year, Tom.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And we got signed on the strength of the record that we had just completed, which is called Bear. And it just came out 2 weeks ago, as I said. So it definitely has been kind of an organic process. It was not like at all like an industry thing where we were like, we're going to do this and attract these kinds of people. None of that happened. No, we had none of that together.
No 5-year plan?
No any year plan. We just were like, we sort of knew that we've had a good sensibility together. And that is also Jerry playing. Any drums that you hear on Adult Child is also Jerry. So we are obviously very different together in different landscapes. And Buick Audra is completely mine, so I'm producing him. Whereas in Friendship Commanders, we are co-producing. And we are also working with Kurt Ballou, who is co-producing us. So Kurt Ballou recorded Bear and mixed it. And he mixed Adult Child, but did not record it.
Do you add band members when you go on the road?
No.
No?
It's just us.
Kind of a jet black duo kind of thing?
It is so much work. It is so much work. But we love it, and we're good at it now. I play through 2 big rigs, and Jerry's the loudest drummer in the world, and I have a big old voice. But it is a lot of work, and Bear is a very involved record musically. It's certainly the most involved on both of our instruments that we've ever made. And it's been really cool.
It is amazing the contrast between the two styles. I mean, because I'm not often a heavy metal kind of listener, and this is like in my limited ability to draw comparisons. I would say it's almost a Soundgarden sound to me, but I don't know if that is in the ballpark,
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, we're like very heavy melodic grunge, like sludge metal. Yes, that's true. Yeah. And Soundgarden were too. And Soundgarden are one of my favorite bands of all time. So thank you for that comparison, and not saying the White Stripes, which is baldly not true. People are just like, oh, there's a woman and a man, and so they're the White Stripes. And I'm like, have you ever heard either of our bands? Like, no, we're not the White Stripes. Like,
yeah, they're nowhere near the heaviness you guys are doing.
I know.
So.
Also, they are kind of bluesy, and we are not. But I love Soundgarden, and I think they had a lot of similar stuff happening in the sense that they were very heavy, but had like soulful sung vocals, which not all metal does, right?
Yeah. And what a vocalist too. It's like,
oh my God.
So
yeah. So no, they're very different worlds, and it's funny. People used to be like, "Oh, it's weird that you have 2 projects." And I'm like, first of all, it's not weird at all, and second of all, have you heard them? Because they definitely each occupy their own real estate musically.
Yeah, you're scratching different itches, right?
I am, and I love to be able to do that. I feel very fortunate to be able to have these different modes of expression and these different landscapes that I get to make, and with some of the same players, and you would almost never know, honestly.
Right. Will you ever like live bring the two worlds together and play a Buick Audra song during in a Friendship Commanders gig?
So that is a wild question that I can't believe I've never been asked. And the answer is maybe. I will say that there is one song called July's Revelations that closes a Friendship Commanders EP that we released in 2020 called Hold On to Yourself. That was, I thought, a Buick Audra song. And Jerry was like, no, you should record it on this EP. And so I did. So it's just me. Oh. And it did fit the theme of that particular project. And I think it's a cool closer to that. But that's as close as we've ever come to merging the two worlds in that sort of way. Typically, the songwriting is very separate. And I don't ever mistake one song for the wrong project or whatever, as you would hear in the writing. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe.
Is it two different hats? You're almost, are you two different personas with the different?
No, but I'm just like, I'm allowing my musical sides to sort of fan out differently, I guess. But I'm definitely the same. I'd say right now with these two bodies of work are the closest I've ever been to the same entity. In fact, my only sibling, who is an incredible musician himself and who was one of my first collaborators, when he heard the two records, he was like, oh, you're bridging the gap. He was like, they're sisters. Yeah.
That's kind of a compliment. I mean,
it is. Like, he was like, oh, there's finally, he said, you're integrating them because
it's like separates.
Yeah, because there's some real pretty singing on Bear, even though it's a very heavy record, and that hasn't always been true.
Do you watch Severance?
I love Severance. Although
it's like the integration that brought it right to mind.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I think he's right, and he definitely has heard just every piece of music I've ever made, so he knows, right, how the worlds have lived separately, and he was like, "Oh, you're integrating."
It's nice to have someone like that who knows your work so well.
It is. I like my brother so much, which people always laugh. And I'm like, you can love your family, but liking someone in your family is very different. I really like my brother.
Right. You almost have to love them, but
it's a higher compliment.
It is. Yeah. Do you ever run things past him that aren't fully formed yet?
No, I don't run anything past anyone, really. I'm very private about my creative process.
Do you, if you have doubts, or even say, the song that you had the music a year before the words, you're just trusting yourself at all points.
Yes, but I'm also trusting the songs. I am sort of superstitious about songwriting in that it's funny. I'm like an atheist, and I'm, kind of a non-believer in so many areas, but I am superstitious about songwriting, and my belief is that if I ever shut anything down, I think that there's a tendency to want to only write what we perceive in the moment as cool work or strong work or the best work. And, when I was first making music in bands, I think I used to shut stuff down. And now I have a very strong belief that if I do, it won't keep coming. So I trust the songs, I trust the process. And if something never comes, well, that's not the worst thing in the world. I've written 350 songs. We're okay. You know what I mean? But my belief is that letting the work breathe and letting the work find its way to me in an organic way and not forcing it in the way that I talked about, sort of filling in weird lyrics just because I want to have a song off the desk, that the work will come to me. And it does.
Do you have any songs that are percolating on the back burner right now?
Yes. Yeah. And I've written a couple Buick Audra songs in recent months. I just wrote one about a month ago, right before Bear came out, called Love in Some Other Font, that I really like. And I'm really leaning toward making a record that's not a proper studio record next time, but something that's more in the lab, like the way that I made Yellow, and having a bunch of guest instrumentalists come and join me on one track or another, instead of having it be my usual crew of collaborators.
Right. That's interesting.
Yeah, I'd like to make a record with, I've had some friends die in recent years, Steve Albini among them, and it keeps this thing about mortality at front of mind. And there are some people that I've wanted to collaborate my literal entire life. One of them is Savion Glover, the tap dancer. I really want to do a track. I really want to create a piece of work that he dances on instead of having a drummer. Yeah. I've wanted to do that since I was like 11 years old, since I saw him in a film.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah. So I really want to do some sort of outsider stuff that isn't just about like the sort of traditional roles of instrumentation and the traditional spaces where we're recording, but like sort of more field in the lab type stuff with this new body of work. Why not?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's not even real tape anymore. It's like digital, so
Yeah. Although I did make a record with Albini, and it was reel-to-reel tape, and the reels are right behind me in this room right now.
Ooh, cool! Right next to the Grammys.
Behind. Yeah, Steve only recorded to analog, so when you worked with Steve, you had to come to Steve.
All right. Well, let's talk about because Steve Albini produced one of the Friendship Commander albums, right?
Yeah, he co-produced it with us. Yep.
What was that experience like?
Incredible and comfortable and fun and funny. Steve was a really funny, dry, smart, brilliant, empathetic person, and I loved him. I knew him till he died. And, he had been my favorite recording engineer forever and ever before I worked with him. And working with him did not interrupt that admiration at all, but it made him a peer, We just became people that were collaborating on something. And Jerry and I both loved working with him. He's hyper efficient, just like knew how to run a session, knew how to keep things moving, how to keep things out of the weeds, and really, really accommodating, actually. Just a lovely but confident person. Steve really knew who he was. And so working with Steve, I think, asked people to know who they were,
Yeah. Has he won a Grammy?
Steve never won a Grammy, and I asked him, and he said, fuck no.
There you go.
That was his actual answer. He said, fuck no.
You couldn't lord that over him, then.
No.
Yeah, I loved Steve as an interview guest. He had such a fascinating mind.
Hell yeah.
And man, what a resume he had. Like Nirvana and the Pogues. It's wow.
Yeah, PJ Harvey, Baruch Assault. He was a brilliant person, but more importantly, he was in one of my top 5 favorite bands of all time, Shellac. Shellac, I think, are one of like the most important bands I've ever heard in my life.
Wow. I will have to give them a closer listen.
Oh, please do. Yeah, and their last record came out 10 days after he passed.
Oh my gosh.
To All Trains.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what happened where I noticed that the Bear album that Steve produced.
Bill.
It wasn't co-produced, wasn't initially released as his mixes because isn't there in 2024? Did you put out a re-release?
That's correct. So that record was called Bill. And yeah, he did actually mix it when we were up at Electrical Audio with him. And when we got back to Nashville, there were things about those mixes that primarily my bandmate thought were not quite what we wanted for what we were doing. I was like more on the fence about it, not to throw Jerry under the bus. I really liked Steve's mixes. They're very angular. They're very, as Steve was, sort of decisive and brash. They like had a real presence, but Jerry had things that he didn't love about them, and we are a democracy. So, he was like, can I try and remix the record? Obviously not the analog mixes. The analog mixes they are what they are. But he was like, we had the files, and he said, do you mind if I take a crack at mixing it? So Jerry mixed the record, and that was what got released in 2018. And I think those mixes are powerful and great, and I stand by releasing them. We always thought we would release Steve's mixes as well because they're super cool. And I don't think any of us thought that Steve would ever die, like ever. Steve was not a person that you thought would ever die. I don't know why, but that seems to be true for a lot of people. He was sort of larger than life,
Yeah.
And so we just thought like, oh, we'll release them whenever. And then, the pandemic happened and life got very stretched out and bizarre in that time. And we started writing work. I started writing work for the band that was much more focused on like cultural prescient issues of that time. And we never got around to releasing Albini's mixes of Bill. And then he died.
Wow.
That's what happened. Yeah. And when he died, I said, we have to fucking release his mixes. Like, they're so cool. I don't think that anything that Steve worked on should not be in the world, and be heard. So we released them on what would have been his 62nd birthday last year.
Amazing.
Yeah. Yep.
So, oh my gosh, Buick, this has been such a fantastic discussion. This might be a good point to put a bow on it. About let's talk about where people can find more about you, what you got coming around the bend.
Yeah.
You going back on the road soon?
I am. So my name is Buick Audra, which is the wildest name of life. It is my given name. And if you type it in anywhere, you can find me on Instagram or my website or whatever, wherever you want to find me. I'm also in Friendship Commanders and very active over there. Friendship Commanders are back on the road November 7th through 23rd, touring on Bear. I will be playing shows in both projects next year, and I would love to meet anybody or see anybody that wants to come out and see us. And both records are available like everywhere. And on Bandcamp, there's all sorts of cool merch bundles for both projects. Check it out.
Fantastic. I got to see, I've got you in my bands in town, but I have to put Friendship Commanders in because you might pass through town and I wouldn't even know it.
We do play Chicago like pretty frequently, and I just played Chicago in July on Adult Child Tour. It was
yes. That was family vacation time. Because I was aware.
Ah, nice. Yeah, it was a great show. I played with Alan Epley from Shiner, who also played solo electric for the people at home.
For those of us scoring at home.
Yeah. Thank you so much for asking me to join you and for talking to me about my work. I'm really grateful.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Just a treat for me. I really, really appreciate it. Thanks so much for coming on the show. All right.
Thanks for having me.
I'll catch you when you hit Chi-Town.
Can't wait.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.